recently, I mean, in recent, what is the term to use? The political, the what is it? The hip or the happening thing in Nigeria now is that if you find anybody who's supposed to be competent in an area of life, that person is supposed to have brought in some kind of degree from some universities, around the world, Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, and you've got all those degrees from all those Nigerian universities.
Yes.
From Queen's College to Unilag to UI and back again to UI to Unilag. I mean, why should we trust you? Why should we trust somebody who
probably
did not?
Because I went to school at an age when I went to university actually in the golden age of tertiary institutions in Nigeria.
Right.
Because when we were going to university, my classmates and I, we all ended up in Nigerian universities. But those people who didn't do quite well were the ones who went off to America, because we felt that the dropouts in Nigeria went off to America at that time.
I've had that said before.
Yes,
it is true that Nigeria was actually like that at one time. That the education standard was so high,
very high,
that only the not quite competent left.
Yes, because UI in those days was a vibrant campus. There were students from all over the world. We had foreign students, who came in from all over the world. American students were there who came in for a session and things of the sort. So it was a very interesting time to be in school.
Right.
Wow.
And I can assure you that the names were recognized all over the world.
Right. Isn't it then such a tragedy to see where we are at now? And how does that make you feel as an educator?
It saddens me because the one thing especially when you're driving along the streets and you see so many young people who are actually on their way to absolutely nowhere, and you realize that there's so much potential that is being lost. Because in the days when people went to school, when everybody was in a good school, and the likelihood that when you went to school, you finished and you went on and got into a very good profession, but this is all being lost right now. And so I look at it, our manpower, which is, it's so valuable, over 140 million Nigerians, but all of us seem to be going nowhere. That's a shame.
I mean, that's a very scary thing. Can you imagine 140 million people just milling
around?
Just milling. I mean, we're always throwing that statistic around that we have plenty what?
And it scares me, being that I see how the more advanced countries are. Education is like such a big deal because they see what is ahead. They see the challenges.
Excuse me, what advanced countries?
When I say advanced countries, I'm not necessarily saying the Europes and I'm talking about the Malaysias, for instance, the Indias.
Yes.
Who ordinarily you would say, okay, we are in the same, but really we are
not there.
I think
not in the same league.
I
think that you earlier on you kind of found what one of the problems, and that is the idea of these degrees, where parents want their children to, you shall go to secondary school, you shall go to university, you shall have that degree, as opposed to, what are you learning along the way? What did you get from that experience? Where are you going with it? Because I remember when I was in secondary school, when there were any subjects that I didn't like, I wasn't going to pay attention in class. And I'm not saying that that's like the main reason why education is so, but if you pack people and you're just, instead of giving them education that works for them, you're giving them education just for the sake of it, and education just for the sake of the degree, then you're going to have big problems. In your school, for example, what's the emphasis on in terms of like the students you have in your school? How are the subjects? How do you even get students into your school? What's the criteria for getting students into your school? What are like the courses like? Things like.
Oh yes, well, of course we are just like most other schools. We get our pool from the children from the pool of people who come in to take the examination, and they come in, and of course they still we do the mainstream subjects. But I understand where you are coming from, and I quite agree with it that. For instance, the question I ask is that when I'm taking mathematics, and I'm having to study or solve quadratic equations, what has that got to do with the price of fish 10 years later, And that's interesting because one of the things that's going to happen during the anniversary, the award ceremony, we're going to have two speakers on that day. They're going to be talking about education and life skills, where those two connect.
Right.
Because there has to be a connect. Because for so many students, I know that when I was in school, for instance, I really did not pay attention, or I really did not think that what I was learning at that point in time was really going to make an impact many years later. But that's what a good education is about, really. You go through the disciplines of mathematics, you go through the disciplines of the science subjects, you go through the disciplines of literature, and at the end of the day, you come out a polished person, you know, who's now able to do whatever it is that comes up.
What goes wrong in our education system, whereby you go through this, you go through this, and you find people come out and they are not still able to solve problems. I see it happen all the time. People wait to be spoon-fed. People wait to be told, and I am like, but that's what your mind is supposed to have been. Somebody's supposed to have been tinkered with your mind so that you look at it and you're like, okay, this is the situation. Now, how are we going to get from point A to point B? If we have indeed decided that point B is the point that is most suitable for our conditions at this time, going by the fact that we actually want to go to point Z, and which foot should we put forth? Why is that so difficult?